Hello, how is everyone today? I'm glad to hear it. My name is Dominique Baez, and I am your Legislative Council President, and I am asking to be your mayor. I am a lifelong Hamden resident, and here I am also a mother and a wife, and I am a Black woman here in Hamden. So I am so grateful that the African American Lodge has come here and created a space for our folks to get together and do important work like this forum here today. I wanted to let people know what my history is here in Hamden. I have not only been a lifelong resident, but I've lived in different areas in town, right? So I grew up in Spring Glen on Whitney Avenue, 1552 Whitney Avenue. And now my parents, they live at 373 Hill Street, where they've lived in the Paradise neighborhood. And my husband and I bought a home in 2014 in Southern Hamden, right next to Southern Connecticut State University. And we've been there for 10 years making our family. I am very, very grateful that y'all are here today to hear us speak and hear about what our plans are for Hamden, and also hear about what we've done. I, as your third-term councilwoman, have been doing the work with my people. As a second-term council president, I have led our council to do legislation that is effective and will better Hamden. From blight ordinance and housing resolutions to transparency legislation, we have worked hard to make sure that we as Hamden are growing. Now it's time for me to move on from leading our council and making that legislation that's going to make Hamden a better place to executing that legislation. I am asking to be the administrator of our town so I can make Hamden a better place via the work that we do together. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope to tell you a bit about myself and my plans for our future. All right. So I introduced myself a bit before, and I want to talk to you more about what my platform is. When I began to run for mayor, I talked about what am I going to do to make Hamden better? And to make Hamden better, I believe Hamden needs to grow. We must grow Hamden. A lot of the candidates talk about economic development, and I talk about economic development as an umbrella issue. We talk about economic development as if it is just attracting businesses, but there's so many other points to economic development. Things fall under this because it's an umbrella. Beautification, a more democratic community policing, investing in our future, our children, our education, making sure that our streets are clean and welcoming are all a part of economic development. I want to talk to you guys about the idea of beautification as economic development. Making a greener, more beautiful Hamden seems like it shouldn't be economic development, but the truth of the matter is when we invest in what our streets look like, when we invest in Hamden looking better, we attract investment from outside. We make Hamden what we feel like it should look like in the future. As your councilwoman, I have invested in beautification, hiring our first full-time beautification staff, and we need to take that further. Plant more flowers, plant more trees, and make sure we have regular street sweeping, expanded litter pickup. I believe that when we're talking about beautification, we're also talking about improving our parks, creating more parks, and improving our business corridors. We can talk more about Lower Dixwell and how we need to create a vision for how those things grow, but I also want to talk about the green portion of things, right? We have the opportunity to create more parks and invest in green tourism. Places like Six Lakes or Eli's Healing Garden and so many places around town that the public needs to claim for public space. Our business corridors can thrive around those things if we create our vision for mixed use, mixed income, and building in Lower Dixwell, building up our downtown, building up our Upper Whitney, all in visions that are made with our residents in those areas. So we respect the identity and authenticity of every neighborhood. I also want to talk about community policing as an economic development. When we talk about community policing or having public safety, we have to realize that when people feel safe in Hamden, people are ready to grow in Hamden. I believe that to do that, we need to make it so that we are able to speak to our police officers, our fire, and our traffic, and they need to speak to us. I want to create community management teams around the town so that we have regular neighborhood-based communication, so the PD and the fire department can trade their statistics with the residents, and the residents can tell them exactly what they see out in Hamden. That's democratic community policing. We need to have access to how we change the way we do our public safety here in Hamden and address causes, root causes, and be proactive instead of reactive. I also want to talk about communication and transparency as ways that we develop economic development. I talked about the community management teams in each of the neighborhoods so that we have the public safety, fire, and traffic talking to our public, but we also have to have communication around in our neighborhoods with the mayor and her department heads as a whole. Does anyone ever heard of Mayor's Night Out? Mayor's Night Out is when you, the mayor, take your department heads to every single neighborhood on a monthly, regularly scheduled basis so that folks can talk to the mayor and talk to the department heads directly. So there's a way for you to get your tree issue, your street issue, your traffic issue all addressed directly with the department heads, and there's record keeping so that there's not a funnel where you lose your complaints, your needs, your commentary, and the mess of things, but rather there's tracking and you're talking directly to your department heads. Mayor's Night Out. I also want a Mayor's Night In because you can talk to me anytime, right? Let's all have an opportunity where we have town hall-based communication back and forth so we can keep our residents informed and we can hear them, like I've done on council already. Communication is necessary, and we all see that. We have been left in the dark for so many things in Hamden, and it is time for us to be a part of the process of making things better and understanding what's happening in our town so we can all be more connected. On top of that, I believe that there's ways to connect with partners to create jobs in industry. We need partners in universities and colleges so that we can create real industry here in Hamden, whether that's manufacturing or medical or care or construction. We need to do that by creating partners with the university so that there's no brain drain. We keep our graduates here in Hamden through jobs and opportunities and entrepreneurship so that we can grow our grant list and grow the capacity and the jobs and the wealth of person to person here in Hamden. When I talk about those partnerships with universities, Southern, Yale, Quinnipiac, Albertus, I'm also talking about partnership with our neighboring towns. We are surrounded by development and growth around us, and we are being left in the dust. A mile away in New Haven, we have $1 billion worth of growth. $1 billion. And instead of figuring out how we as Hamden can grow off that $1 billion, we have been ignoring it. We need to partner up with everyone around us so that we are not living in a bubble, but rather we're growing our bubble. On top of this, jobs and industry, I want to talk about not losing the brain drain of our college students, but also investing so we don't have a brain drain of our little ones. Making sure we invest in our Board of Education, invest in the future of our children through youth programming, and making sure that we have a communication with our Board of Education and that we are having our buildings and our spaces and our services shared amongst us so we're not siloed off, but we respect the Board of Education. And we understand that they need us to invest in their spaces and their buildings so that they can grow the community and be a part of every neighborhood that they're in. And when I talk about growing the neighborhoods, I'm also talking about housing and addressing the unhoused. We as Hamden have the ability to build, to use our assets, to grow in Hamden. We as a council, we created a housing ordinance that talked about having land banking. Land banking is when you use what you have to create development in Hamden. We don't have money, y'all know, right? We don't have a lot of money, but we have things like space and we have the ability to attract developers in here and to do it wisely. So they're not creating gentrification, but rather they're creating opportunities to house folks, create ownership housing, not just low-income rental housing, but ownership housing, paths to ownership in areas that need to be expanded. I'm also addressing the obvious thing in the room, which is affordability. I spent a lot of this campaign time leading our council in the budget process, understanding that the last proposed budget was going to create a tax hike that would make people lose their homes. If you own a home here in Hamden, you got a reevaluation, you got an assessment, and you saw that tax rate, and you saw that your bill was going to go up $100 to $300 extra a month. I led our council in cutting $18 million from the budget and effectively cutting people's tax hikes by 2/3. I got to wrap it up, but I obviously have more to say. Thank you. Thank you.